Today we're gonna be looking at a fully original James Bond story from Bizarre Creations, the guys that made Blur and Project Gotham Racing. This gets better too. This story is written by the guy that wrote GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, and The World Is Not Enough, Bruce Fairstein. As far as the lead actors go, Daniel Craig comes back to play Bond and does a phenomenal job.
We've got to stop him before he gets those bioweapons out of the country. Hang on!
And Judi Dench comes back to play as M and does an absolutely terrible job.
You can keep your faith. I put my trust in Bond.
None of this particularly matters if the game isn't any good though. With a Metacritic score of just 62, it's easy to get an idea why this game isn't talked about today, but let's find out if the game's good, shall we? This is James Bond: Bloodstone. We're gonna start with the opening cutscene and then go over the first 13 minutes of the game in extreme detail. So, the story begins in Athens, Greece. Bond gets a phone call from M, learning that he needs to drop everything he's doing immediately.
The satellite is picking up suspicious activity near Greco's boat. You've got to get a move on now.
I'm on my way.
So this guy, Greco, he has a plan to wipe out all the members of the G20 during a photo op, and M wants this army guy to call off the photo shoot. He doesn't believe her though.
We've checked Greco out. He is an international businessman here on vacation.
His business, sir, is international arms trading.
On that note, the first mission is infiltrating Greco's boat, and it immediately shows you what kind of game this is. It's a cover shooter, through and through. You take cover with X, aim with L, and punch with square. You get it, you shoot with R. Melee combat is a single button press. You just run up and push square on people, and they die. Getting melee kills fills your focus meter up one level, up to 3, which is basically Red Dead Redemption's Deadeye if Deadeye automatically aimed at heads for you. You hold L1 and it auto-targets the head of whatever enemy is close to your reticle. Right, I am using a controller, but the button prompts you're seeing on the screen are for mouse and keyboard. There's no way to change that. You have to figure out all the controls on your own, which, save for a couple little issues later which we'll get to, are pretty self-explanatory. Eventually, Bond catches up to Greco, and...
Who the hell are you?
Call off the attack, Greco. It's over.
1 man against 40? I don't think so. Guards! Deal with him!
After a big fistfight, Greco gets away, leading into a chase. This is where the game starts getting really good. A helicopter shows up and starts slicing through the walls of the boat while Greco escapes on another boat. Why didn't he just go in the helicopter? Whatever.
Give me that! No! The bigger one!
Hell yeah, and just like that, now we're playing the first driving mission. Bond races down the river, chasing Greco while the helicopter follows along beside the both of you, blowing up everything in your path to try to stop you. Probably not the smartest way to take out a boat when you're in a helicopter with missiles and a machine gun attached to it, but I respect the hustle. The handling in the boat is perfect and weighty, yet controllable on the water. Shooting other boats is automatic. You just get close, push X once to shoot, and then push X once again to shoot again. There's no way to manually aim. It's very on rails and it's practically just a cutscene, but it's so full of on-screen action that it stays fun the entire time. The Nintendo DS version of the boat level is the total opposite of this though. It's an on-rail shooter where you need to blow up non-stop waves of enemies on boats, which they for some reason keep piles of explosives on. Bond targets a massive explosive right beside the helicopter, and... Once you're back on the ground, it's mostly just a shootout with a bunch of guys. Nothing too crazy. Check this out though. A grenade gets thrown my way, and damn, all the glass from above just shatters all over the place. There's even snow pouring in from outside. That's so cool. Eventually, Bond ends up catching up to Greco.
Where's the bomb, Greco? Last chance. Where is it?
You're too late.
The first car driving mission is, well, it's perfect. The vehicle handles incredibly well for something so fast and heavy, which is good because, well, you can smash through traffic if you get lucky, but for the most part, it's one hit and you're down. Weaving through the traffic keeps you tensed up the whole time like any good racing game does, and it's honestly so good that all the craziness in the background doesn't even distract you from the core driving. Again, these are the guys that made Project Gotham Racing and Blur. It makes sense that it's good, but the rest of the driving missions too just get better and better. So anyway, Bond ends up ramming into Greco, causing his vehicle to explode, killing him, destroying the bomb, and saving the United States of America. That was the first 13 minutes of the game. That was 13 minutes. If you want to play the game yourself, allow me to help you a bit, because you've got a few options. If you don't care about this and just want to get back to the game, skip to this timestamp right there. You can play Bloodstone on PC, PS3, 360, or of course, emulate the consoles. There's also a 3DS version. The game's been delisted on all storefronts, so it's not the easiest task in the world. Used copies for the consoles go for about $30 on eBay. That's definitely your easiest way. Problem is, it runs at 720p, it's 30 FPS, and just generally looks pretty bad on displays today. So first up, we've got RPCS 3. You've got to turn on right color buffers or else it won't boot. Then, to scale your resolution, just slide it up to whatever you want it to be. I recommend doing that with FSR. Then, if you want 60 FPS, just turn your V-blank frequency up to 120 and set your frame limit to 60. Now, this is what the game looks like. As a comparison, here's the PC native version. And back to PS3. The RPCS 3 version would be totally playable if it didn't crash all the time, but your mileage may vary, so alas, I chose to play on PC. If you decide to do that, you first need to find it. I can't help you with that, but it's delisted, so it's most likely on some sort of archival site on the internet. Look around. Thing is, you gotta disable your antivirus to even install it, since it detects it as a bunch of Trojan horse viruses. Once you get in, the settings menu isn't as bare bones as you think it would be. It's nice to not have to mess around with any files to change settings, just max it out if your PC is even slightly recent. It's by far the best way to play this either way here. And I guess, here's the Nintendo DS version for fun. It's honestly a crazy impressive looking DS remake of the game from the developers N-Space. They made the Nintendo DS version of GoldenEye and also the Call of Duty games. The DS version deserves its own video, honestly. I'll probably do that soon, so make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get back to the real game. The pacing slows down quite a lot after this, and it becomes much more of a generic cover shooter that sees Bond sneaking through a shipping yard and scanning points of interest with his cell phone, which is basically a Batman detective vision, because every game in this era had to have that. Eventually, the enemies catch on to Bond sneaking around, and it's a full-on shootout for the remainder of the level, which goes from shipping yard to an incredibly boring sewer level with a train car puzzle. The boredom doesn't last long, as the enemies begin somehow using a tunnel boring machine as a weapon against Bond, which is pretty epic. Let's talk about the sales while Bond escapes. It's worth noting that this game came out the same month as GoldenEye for the Wii, Black Ops, God of War Ghost of Sparta, Split Second, Sonic Colors, Donkey Kong Country Returns, Gran Turismo 5, and a ton of other releases. That month, it sold just 176,000 copies in Europe and 104,000 copies in the US, across all platforms. Development of a sequel was being done by Raven Software, but it was quickly scrapped after the poor sales and reception of Bloodstone, and another reason that we'll get into later. Bond ends up traversing his way through the sewers, a catacomb level, and more in search of the target, but who is that target? Well, let's rewind a little bit. After Bond takes out Greco, M tells Bond that there's a Ministry of Defense researcher named Malcolm Tedsworth who's disappeared and was last spotted in Istanbul. That's what Bond was up to at the construction site, digging for clues on his whereabouts. He finds Malcolm being interrogated by a guy named Bernin, who's demanding a password to a USB key that holds Malcolm's research.
What is the password for the USB drive? Tell me the key to crack the code!
Stop! Stop! I'll tell you.
Thank you.
Kill him! Let's get out of here!
Once he gets the password, he kills Malcolm and flees across the city, and Bond knows where he's going now. That's what sets up this next driving section. This one is much more slow-paced than all the others in the game, but you need to be more accurate with your driving this time, since there are hazards that kill you instantly. Like water. One wrong move and you're gonna be retrying this. The car is slower and heavier than the first driving mission too. It's cool that they even bothered to give the vehicles different handling mechanics in this game. Eventually, Bond ends up chasing Bernin through a dock area till... Wait, what? He was just in front of me though. We haven't talked much about the guns in this game yet, and that's mostly because they're all extremely self-explanatory. All the machine guns act like, well, basic machine guns. They're punchy, the recoil on them is completely reasonable, and they do exactly what they should. Same with the pistols. You just shoot enemies and they go down. And those are the primary two weapons that you'll be using throughout this whole game. Ammo is easy to acquire since every enemy drops ammo, so you never really need to worry about running out. That is, until you get the grenade launcher. Watch this. There's a helicopter that's driving Bond crazy. Suddenly, the map designers put a grenade launcher right in front of you. You pick it up, walk up to the helicopter, and fire. Absolutely nothing. You can't blow up the helicopter. What's worse, the grenade launcher replaces whatever machine gun you had in your inventory, and it only holds one grenade. What an absolutely useless weapon. Bond ends up making his way through a linear tunnel system, and then the game randomly cuts to this scene.
I want a name. Who are you working for?
Never.
Let's try that again. Who is it? Who hired you? Give me the name.
Pomerov. Stefan Pomerov.
And where's he taking those papers?
I don't know. I've told you everything I know. Please. Please, let me go. I'm no good to you anymore.
You got that right.
So now, the researcher is dead. Pomerov is a Russian businessman with no police record. He's located in Monaco, about to hop on a flight to Moscow tonight. Bond asks M to get their best contact in Monaco to stall Pomerov at the airport. Meet Nicole Hunter.
Nicole Hunter. My friends call me Nikki.
Nicole Hunter, you're the jewelry designer.
I've been called worse.
She's coming along with Bond for the mission. She knows Pomerov.
M sent me.
Interesting cover, but not an unpleasant surprise. Shall we go?
The car's over there.
So what can you tell me about Pomerov?
Okay. The truth is, he supplies the chemicals used to alloy the gold and silver in my line of jewelry. And he's been after me to open a boutique in the casino he just bought in Monaco.
He bought the casino.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to meet in the boardroom, which should give you enough time to get into his office and break into his safe.
Well done.
That's the mission then. Break into Pomerov's safe. Let's do a quick story recap. So there was a researcher who was kidnapped and killed for a USB key containing sensitive MI6 information on it. A guy named Bernin was the one who killed the researcher. Bond caught up and interrogated Bernin before killing him. There, he learned that Bernin worked for a man named Pomerov. We're currently breaking into one of the casinos to search for evidence on Pomerov. Breaking into the casino begins as a sneaking mission. Bond sneaks around, stealth killing all the guards until he finds an entrance to the building by climbing up to it. There's security cameras that you have to hack and doors that need to be unlocked, all through just scanning things with your phone and playing the little button press minigame. This whole mission is very basic and boring and doesn't deviate from this at all. Check this out though. Whoa, they had ray tracing back in 2010. What's inside the safe is a conveniently unlocked cell phone, already playing the video that Bond wants to see. The video gives us more insight into what Tedsworth was talking about before he was killed.
Told you. We were investigating anthrax and smallpox to come up with antidotes that could be used in the field in the case of a biological attack.
And there was no way to militarize them? To turn them into weapons instead of cures?
No.
He demands the
Password for the USB drive.
and then
Thank you.
I'm just gonna cut forward a bit past all the next shooting bits. Check out those reflections again though, damn, beautiful. They learn that Pomerov owns a chemical refinery in Siberia, and they learn that he's manufacturing and storing bioweapons at that facility.
Makes perfect sense. They tortured Tedworth, the researcher, for the code to his bioresearch formulas.
Him and Nicole head back to the hotel to relax temporarily until M calls Bond and essentially asks to see if Nicole can help them out.
I'm gonna need a flight, ground transportation, a local contact.
Wait, not so fast.
Nicole conveniently already has a business meeting set up with Pomerov, so they head to Siberia. Once they reach Siberia, Bond acts as Nicole's bodyguard, because remember, she has connections with Pomerov. She's basically gonna distract Pomerov while Bond breaks into a server room and steals back all the research that was stolen from them.
I'm here to see Stefan Pomerov.
Is he expecting you?
Do you think I just dropped into Siberia? I also need somewhere for my bodyguard to wait, where he can be fed and watered.
Park the car over there, and he can wait in the shed.
It starts off as another gameplay padding mission full of boring scanning and absolute nothingness, but eventually picks up pace. Check out how cool this snow looks. Bond goes from killing a bunch of enemies with an MP5, then walks through this door and goes right back into stealth mode, only to end up hacking a computer and fighting off waves and waves of enemies. Bond. James Bond. Once they confirm that it is in fact a bioweapon facility, the mission is now to blow the entire place up. Bond heads into a nonsense server room that controls the coolant and the exhaust systems of the building, which lets him turn these wheels to cause a massive explosion. Problem is, the coolant is still doing its thing. Let's shut that down too. And that's also done with a little wheel thing. Hell yeah. James makes his getaway, killing tons of people on the way. He smashes through a window, calls Nicole,
I'm on my way.
then continues to run through more hallways as everything explodes around him. It's absolutely raining fire outside now, but Pomerov's guys still aren't letting up. This is by far the hardest shootout in the game, killing anything and everything that moves with a mixture of gunshots to the face and more fire through explosive barrel shots. He's just holding them off until Nicole appears in the car.
Move over! I'll drive. Are you all right?
Yeah, I think so.
What happened to Pomerov?
He ran off. I saw him get on the train that delivers the chemicals to the port. His men were loading them on.
Which way?
Over there.
This is by far the best driving mission in the entire game. It's a massive chase towards Pomerov as he escapes on a train, and you've got to use the roads to try to chase him. It feels like you're playing MotorStorm Apocalypse. Honestly, it's that good. Everything around you is exploding, and it's legitimately hard to tell what's going on, but to an extreme this time. They end up taking a massive jump onto ice, which brings in a whole new challenge. Stupid, goddamn water again. Ugh, this water got me so many times. It's really fun avoiding the water though, as it breaks and cracks from the explosives otherwise. Of course, a helicopter then appears, starts shooting at Bond while he drives along the ice. That causes the ice to buckle over and over again, breaking all around and pushing things up, including Bond's car.
It's a dead end.
Not necessarily.
Nicole? Nicole? Are you alright?
Bond and Nicole may look injured from the car crash, but they're totally fine.
What was that?
The train, stopping. We must be at the port. I've got to get after Pomerov. Here, take this. Stay here.
No. Please, take me with you.
Can you handle it?
Yes. Don't leave me here.
Back over to Pomerov. The train has been stopped at a dock, and he's already hopped on an extremely fast boat to escape.
Set your heading for 220.
But there are boats in the way.
I don't care what's in the way. Plow through them.
There, the hovercraft. When we get on board, do you think you can pilot it?
Yes.
There are enemies all over this boat. I have absolutely no idea how Nicole managed to get into the cockpit to pilot this thing, but she did, and we're using it to chase Pomerov. Bond kills everybody on the deck of the boat, and then heads downstairs to clear some weight off the SAV. That's the boat, that's what it's called. There's armored vehicles down here and a ton more enemies to deal with, but eventually he manages to toss one of the jettisons into the water. Then he avoids machine gun fire again on the way to the second one and does the exact same thing to it. It worked.
We're gaining on him.
I'm heading back to the bridge.
Pomerov starts firing missiles at your ship. Bond runs back up to the deck of the boat and hops on the anti-missile turret that's conveniently up there, unlocked and ready to use, to begin defending against the missiles, while slowing down Pomerov's boat at the same time. The turret never overheats or runs out of ammo, so you essentially just keep your crosshair aimed at Pomerov's SAV until he shoots missiles at you, then sweep the missiles to block him. It's really easy. Within a few minutes, Pomerov's SAV is slowed down enough that Bond can jump to the wing of it, enslaved Odyssey to the West style. He kills a bunch of people who are also on the wing of this thing while it's hurling down the river. He even jumps across the side of it like enslaved. This game is so sick. Once he's in, he sees Pomerov.
Shoot me. You'll still die.
Well, he wasn't lying. You actually have to shoot the exit hatch, and this clears the poison that's spreading around the ship and kills Pomerov at the same time. You'd think that would be the end of the story, but
Change of plans.
with Pomerov dead and the bioweapon secured, we're nearing the end of the story here.
James, are you all right?
Better than you.
Oh, this? It's given me an entirely new idea for a line of bracelets.
But there's one thing still bugging Bond.
I've still got some mopping up to do here.
Who tipped off MI6 to Pomerov's location in the first place? He realizes that it wasn't the kidnapped scientist, since there's no way he could have reached out in the position he was in, being kidnapped and all. Bond needs to find out. It seems that killing Pomerov was the goal of whoever tipped off MI6. Back at the chemical plant that Bond and Nicole blew up, he overheard a conversation about Pomerov meeting with a Chinese guy.
They're pretty well funded by some foreign investors.
Bond puts two and two together and heads to Bangkok to speak to an informant that knows who was actually behind it all, General Ping. Ping tried to call Bernin's phone earlier, which Bond took for the video of the researcher being kidnapped, which is how Bond found the guy, Ping. Ping wants to meet in an aquarium to chat and explain why he was contacting Bernin. Look at that ray tracing. God damn, look at these graphics in general. God, it's so nice. Why does this game look so good anyway? These reflections don't get cut off with the camera, but it's obviously actually not ray tracing. You can see they're just rendering the game twice, once for the reflections and once for the real world. There are characters moving around and they're reflecting perfectly, but if you try to knock them out of position, you simply can't. Sorry. So Ping reveals that he was investigating a freelance military man named Rack, who operates in Bangkok and sells stolen info and tech on the black market. Ping suggests that Rack likely played a role in the kidnapping of the... Here we go. Bond takes after the assassin, chasing him and killing everybody along the way. This is a bit different than a lot of the shootouts throughout the game since everybody's so far away. Check it out, bam, sniper rifle. The sniper takes 0 skill to use with the game's extremely generous aim assist when you're using a controller. But honestly, this chase mission just gets better and better. The assassin starts climbing and jumping across the rooftops of Hong Kong, Jet Li Rise to Honor style, and it's this huge chase against this unbelievably detailed neon lit cityscape. Eventually, he catches up.
Stop! Take one more step and you're dead.
Bond jumps off the building and tries to grab the assassin, but he manages to escape and hop into a ridiculously oversized dump truck, which begins quickly driving down the busy city streets. Bond hops into a tow truck for this chase. Honestly, as far as the driving missions go, this one's probably the least insane, but it's still filled with absolute nonsense. This thing is so big and heavy that it can knock out the supports to the bridge overhead. When it drives through streets with small widths, the destruction's just really impressive. Cars are flipping over and crashing. It's just fantastic. The assassin loses control and goes flying off a bridge by the end, killing the assassin. Bond decides to head to a nightclub, where he has a hunch that somebody he knows who resides in Bangkok may know where Rack is. This is of course a massive shootout through the streets again, but let's just cut to it. Bond heads to an old friend.
Because I know you, Silky.
To inquire about Rack's location. He gives Bond that location. It's in Burma, but immediately after Bond leaves, he calls Rack and gives him a warning that Bond is coming.
There's an Englishman on his way to see Rack.
Bond ends up getting ambushed by Rack and his men and thrown into a prison cell to be tortured.
I'll give you one last chance, Rack.
You should have quit while you had the chance.
Rack makes a big fuss, explaining how he's gonna skin Bond with his jewel-infused knife.
Take a very good look at this knife, Mr. Bond. It's platinum, encrusted with precious stones and diamonds, designed to elicit the most exquisite pain when I use it to eviscerate a man and skin him alive.
Damn, Look at that knife. Those are some nice jewels on that knife. How's Bond gonna get out of prison, though? Well, he struggles and struggles to break out, but he just can't. Oh, never mind. Bond escapes the prison. He kills all the guards, gets his stuff back, and then starts going after Rack. This mission was one of the better missions when it comes to pure action. The desert environments mixed with Rack's entire army completely changes the tone of the game and makes the stakes feel way higher. The shootouts are intense and difficult, and the budget that the enemies have is much higher than before as well. They've got an armored truck with a mounted machine gun that you can actually blow up with the grenade launcher now. Finally. Bond ends up chasing after Rack in a helicopter. But Rack, knowing that he's being followed, whips out a rocket launcher, and it's a direct hit. His vehicle is shot down, crash landing in the middle of the jungle. Bond proceeds on foot for an entire jungle mission of fights until he manages to take Rack's helicopter out using his wits. He starts by blowing up a dam, causing water to spray directly all over Rack's helicopter, forcing him to move. The entire place eventually begins to crumble, taking out the helicopter and forcing Rack to retreat to the ground. Bond with his fists, Rack with his jewel-fused diamond knife. Who's gonna win?
Bond, help me.
You had your chance, Rack.
Please, save me. I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you who I'm working with.
Too late. I already know.
Bond has already pieced together the plot twist. The knife. The jewels on the knife.
Nicole Hunter, you're the jewelry designer.
If you would have missed that line at the start of the game or just paid no attention to it, because, well, why would you? It would be a pretty absurd plot twist that's never properly explained and makes no sense. Who tipped off MI6 to Pomerov's location? Well, it was Nicole. It's never explained why, but I'd imagine that she was trying to ruin her ex, Pomerov. Bond returns to Monaco and sends Rack's knife to Nicole, basically telling her that he knows that she's a double agent for MI6 and the head of a group that kidnaps researchers and sells MI6 data to third parties. Nicole attempts to flee the city, but Bond follows right behind her. The final driving mission. The final mission. Nothing particularly crazy happens during this, but as a finale, it really lets you think about the plot twist and, if it's your first time playing, how little sense it made. By bashing into her car over and over again, he eventually catches Nicole.
Nicole, stop. Don't move.
Once she's been cornered, Nicole reveals that she isn't the head of the group that kidnaps and steals information from researchers. She simply has a boss who's much bigger, richer, and more powerful. Somebody bigger than any organization in the world.
He's everywhere. He's bigger than you. Bigger than MI6, bigger than everything. And he's watching us, right now.
An unmanned drone then pops up and kills Nicole.
Get down!
Long story short, the organization hired Nicole. Nicole hired Rack, and Rack hired Pomerov, and Pomerov hired Bernin. All that's left to do now is take out the organization in the sequel to prevent this from ever happening again. Let's wrap this up by talking about the sequel, James Bond 007 Risico. It was the sequel to Bloodstone. It was going to be based on the Ian Fleming story Risico, with the plotline expanded to a full-length video game. Significant progress had been made by Raven, and it was set to be released in Christmas of 2010, but was cancelled after MGM filed for bankruptcy and lost the Bond license. The footage you're seeing on screen leaked in 2012 and was acquired by Unseen 64. Like we mentioned earlier, once the game was cancelled, Raven, who were prominent developers up to this point with games like Singularity and X-Men Origins Wolverine, were sent to the catacombs of the Call of Duty slave pits, pumping out DLC and maps for Black Ops and, well, every single Call of Duty game released since then to this day. But what about Bizarre Creations, developers of this first Bloodstone game? Well, after the financial failure of Blur and Bloodstone back-to-back, this was unfortunately their final game. Activision killed them off on November 16th, 2010. Likely better than being forced to make Call of Duty DLC though, probably. Bloodstone also featured an online multiplayer mode with 3 game modes. It was 16 players, 8 versus 8, competing in either team deathmatch, objective, or last man standing. I've unfortunately never played this, and it was a bit out of the scope of this video to get into it too much, but the servers are still online through the PS3 Reborn Discord. I've linked that below in the description if you've got some friends that you want to try it out with. Works on PS3 or RPCS3. It's cool that it's here, but multiplayer was clearly never really what the developers were intending to make with this game. What they made is a fantastic, high-budget action game with a fantastic story and AAA actors that, if you're itching for a new 7th gen cover shooter, you can't go wrong playing. You can run through this in about 6 hours, and I can't recommend doing so enough. That's a wrap on this one, though. Thanks for watching, guys. Love ya, and peace. Maybe just play it in RPCS3. Maybe don't get a virus on purpose.